Hello and welcome to another Thursday interview here on Viking.TV. And today I want you to meet someone who lives and breathes Cajun music. And even if you don't absolutely know what that is, I guarantee your foot will be tapping within the next few minutes. So clear away the furniture because you just might want to get up and jive or hot-foot it into the kitchen to mess up a tasty gumbo. And if you're lucky enough to cruise along the Mississippi, you could stay before or after on a cruise extension and really delve into the culture of Lafayette, the heart of Cajun country, or enjoy a privileged access Cajun heritage experience on a visit to the Rural Life Museum at Louisiana State University. And this is what you might be able to see and hear my next guest in action. Let's have a look. Well, I'm very excited to introduce to you now band leader, singer and accordion player par excellence, Bruce Daigrepont. Welcome, Bruce.
Well, I'm happy to be here talking with you, Anne.
It's lovely to talk to you. It's wonderful to hear you as well, hear you playing and singing and everything. But for those of us who don't really know, can you explain to us what Cajun is?
Well, let's see, that can be very simple or it can get more complex. In the strictest definition, a Cajun, the strictest version would be a direct descendant of the Acadian French people, who were some of the first Europeans that settled in North America. Their colony dated back to 1604. They called it Acadie, and it later became Nova Scotia once England got control of the colony, and they were exiled by the British. So in the strictest definition of a Cajun, you would have to be a direct descendant of the Acadian French. And a broader definition that's much more inclusive that I consider is really used more is that, you had a lot of different people that came to live here in southern Louisiana. And when these people all came together, they actually created something totally new and unique. And that blend of people, so a lot of people would call themselves Cajuns today if they adopted the certain traditions, customs, lifestyle of the country people of South Louisiana. And of course, part of that was speaking French and having the French language as the language that was used. Among the groups that came here that really came together to make something new were in addition to the Acadian French. Before the Acadians came to Louisiana, there were French that came directly from France, which is mainly my ancestors. And that's one reason the Acadians came to Louisiana, is it was a French-speaking colony, and they were looking for a home. So you had French that came directly from France, many of which were here before the Acadians. You had French-speaking people that came up around the same time as the Acadians from the Caribbean. And they came from what is now, I guess, Haiti. Some were white, some were of mixed race, and some were African. And they were all French-speaking people. And they brought their traditions with them to South Louisiana. Also, we had, of course, some of Napoleon Bonaparte soldiers came here after he was defeated or whatever, and settled and founded a few towns here in Louisiana. Also, early on, there were Germans that came here. And they settled in South Louisiana, but living in a French colony, they became French speakers. And so you have people with German names, like Scheck-Snyder, and I'm trying to think of Miller, that consider themselves complete Cajuns, and their families have spoken French for a few hundred years. And they probably genetically more French than they are German, but they still carried a German name. And the Germans brought some of their culture here. In fact, the accordion that I'm playing the instrument that I play came through the Germans brought it here to Louisiana. Then there's the Spanish, because we were governed by Spain for about 40 years, I think from 1762 to the very beginning of the 1800s. So there were Spanish people that came here. Although they governed the colony, it was still a French-speaking colony. So many of their descendants also consider themselves Cajuns because they became part of the culture and the lifestyle. And of course, you have the Africans that came here who became French speakers here, and the native tribes, and even somebody with Irish or English heritage, which was not a lot here in Louisiana as much as the other ones that I mentioned. But you have people with names like Riley, Reed, Macaulay, and they're 100% Cajun. So it's the more inclusive definition would be people that, have adopted the same lifestyle, customs, traditions, and the French language was paramount in the whole thing. So.
Well, yeah, and the music too. I guess that you've got so many cultures coming together and evolving together. But the one thing that pulls people together is music. And I guess Cajun music started by sort of singing about home and love and things like that.
Well, yeah, Cajun music, not so much the songs I've written, because I try to avoid the most common themes. But if you listen to Cajun music, it's the lyrics are usually very sad. But what people find very strange, I guess, when most of the people we play for are not French speakers, so they speak English, and they love to dance to our music. I mean, you get from the first note, that dance floor fills up and people dance. And the people, when you tell them what the songs are about, the ones that don't understand the language, they're like, well, the music is so happy. Why is the music so upbeat and happy? And the lyrics are so sad? Because most of the most common theme in Cajun French music is, tu m'as quitté pour t'en aller, you left me to go away, mon cœur est cassé, my heart is broken, they don't know how they're going to continue on in life. And ironically, the vast majority of the people that have sang Cajun music, especially in the past, not so much today, it's changed, but in the past it was mostly men. So naturally, the songs were about women who were doing wrong to the men, as opposed to the men doing wrong to the women. Today, we do have a lot more women playing Cajun music and singing in the past.
Well, I tell you what, we heard your band earlier playing Bayou Pong Pong.
Bayou Pong.
Bayou Pong Pong, which was a real foot tapper. But here's another clip, I think, that almost sounds like rock and roll. I wonder if you agree, because it's from your Nuit Cajun et Zydeco. It's called Big Mamou, but we'll hear it now, but I'm sure everybody will agree with me after we've heard it, and probably you will as well. It sounds very rock and roll to me. Let's have a listen.
Good.
Now, Bruce, would you agree? Rock and roll influence there?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But and here's the thing. Rock and roll comes from this part of the world.
Cool.
I mean, so rock and roll originated in the deep south of the United States, to a large degree between New Orleans and Memphis, Tennessee. So, we had some of the earliest rock and roll singers recorded here in New Orleans, and so it's not foreign to us. It really was a regional music before it went worldwide. I've heard and I've read where Fats Domino's first language was French. And the song, "See You Later, Alligator."
Oh, yeah.
Why, crocodile. That song was written by a Cajun, Bob Charles Guidry, who was a French speaking Cajun in Southwest Louisiana. So that is a rock and roll song played with the Cajun instrumentation.
But I got the influence the wrong way around. It wasn't the rock and roll that influenced what you sang there. It was what you sang there was the very derivation of rock and roll, I guess.
Yeah, well, rock and roll, I guess, it's a combination of, like our music. Basically, all music that came from the United States is a combination of European elements and African elements that kind of came together in a certain part of the world that created rock and roll. Also, the music we play has European elements and African elements, in the fact that you play in European instruments, say the accordion and so forth, but then the way we syncopate the music has more of like an African feel, and depending on how you sing the song, you can sing something with a very bluesy feel to it, which would come more from the African traditions. Here we go. Oh, my mother, you hold those long notes. Oh, my mother's a grandma. You sing like that, it's got more of that bluesy feel to it, and so it's part European, part African, is what it is. And
sound. I tell you what, tell me about Cajun food.
Cajun food. Oh, well, of course, that's my favorite food, obviously. Of course, I'm not a picky eater. I like a lot of good food, but I grew up, Cajun food to me is basically, it's rice and gravy. That's the way I call it. Because we grow a lot of rice in Southwest Louisiana. Southeast Louisiana is more the sugarcane country. Southwest Louisiana is the rice growing country. for the most part. And basically, every traditional Cajun dish is served over a bed of rice. I always say you put the rice on the plate first, or when you go to cook something, you start cooking the rice and then you figure out what else you're going to cook. And we tend to make gravies or sauces. We're part of the southern United States, but we're very different also. In the fact that in the southern United States, people automatically think of frying all the food, and we fry food also. We'll fry soft-shell crab, we'll fry fish, oysters, shrimp, all that, chicken. But we also most of our dishes are based around making a gravy or a sauce, whether it's, whatever it is, of course, obviously gumbo is something that, so I grew up eating rice-based food when I was a kid, probably just about every day. And as I got older, well, now we go eat in a certain place here and there, and it's different types of food. We proud of our food. Obviously, it's like the music. It's a combination of the different people and cultures that came here that created this way of cooking, and it's, I guess, unique in the world, as far as I can tell. We do like to make gumbo. We have, basically the two basic types of gumbo would be a chicken gumbo with, we have sausage, smoked sausage, andouille sausage. You can put tasso in there. We also make seafood gumbo, or, which could.
Is it very hot and spicy?
Well, you know what? It depends on the individual. It's somewhat spicy, yeah. But I find, of course, obviously, to me, if any food that's over seasoned, you can't even taste what you're eating anymore, and your mouth just feels like it's on fire. That's not really enhancing the food. I find to a certain degree, the people that sometimes cook the food the spiciest are people who are not from here or in the culture, and they move here. And in order to, maybe sometimes they want to impress people with how they can cook like the locals, they tend to maybe over season the food, But we have so many, and then you can put okra in a gumbo. I don't know if you know what okra is, and that thickens the gumbo. Or you can put filet to thicken the gumbo. And you can cook gumbo with wild game, duck, whatever. But the two most common is the seafood and the chicken. Where my family's from, we're talking about food, right?
Yeah.
Where my family's from, we're known for the cochon de lait. Cochon de lait is a roast suckling pig. Mm. And they said it was Napoleon soldiers that brought the tradition to a certain part of Louisiana. So they, I grew up every holiday, we ate a cochon de lait. Even for Thanksgiving, we didn't eat turkey, we ate cochon de lait. And we make rice dressing with that, which some people call dirty rice, or in French it's called fard, which means dressing in French. With ground meat, ground pork, livers, gizzards, and all the different seasonings, and that's and then a lot of other things. Fricassee, which is got a dark roux. You can make that with pork or chicken.
Oh, are you a great cook yourself?
I'm good at certain things. I'm not a chef or anything, but I'm good at cooking what, I never did cook until I got married, which I've been married now 36 years, I think. But after I got married, one thing I realized, the real food that I grew up with is hard to find in restaurants. They still mostly they'll have gumbo and jambalaya, and then they'll have a lot of all the fried foods and everything. But a lot of the things like the fricassees and sauce piquante and different dishes like that, you really don't find in restaurants. So I thought to myself early on, I said, if I don't learn to cook this, I won't be eating this anymore. And I'd call my mother on the phone. I'd ask her how to cook, how you cook this, how you cook that, and she'd tell me there's no recipes. You just kind of get to where you know what you're doing, and it's just a process, and so
you feel very hungry.
Crawfish head touffee, all that,
Where is home to you then? Because your parents, I think, they come from Marksville in Louisiana, but you were born in New Orleans. So where's home to you?
Well, both places can be home to me. As far as, let's see, my parents moved here. Well, actually, okay, I guess I was talking about the Valls Parish, La Paroisse des Avoyelles, around Marksville in that area. In Louisiana, we have 64 parishes. We don't have counties. And 22 of those 64 are part of the French Triangle. So about 1/3 of the state of Louisiana. And so it forms like this kind of triangle like this. And you got New Orleans here and Lake Charles, Texas, and my family's from near the top there. And my family had settled there going back to the late 1700s. So when your mother and father come from the same place and their parents and their parents and their parents, that's your heritage, And as far as I know, I've never seen a name in my, my roots or whatever you want to call it, that wasn't French. So as far as in fact, sometimes I play music and I talk to people, tourists and this and that. I say, genetically, I'm probably more French than at least half the people in France today.
You probably are.
Our ancestors left France centuries ago, and since that time, millions of people have emigrated into France. So it's, and so, but the area where my family settled, Valls Parish, was settled by direct French immigrants in the late 1700s. Also, Evangeline Parish was the same way. And the Acadian French went a little further south, the Spanish a little further south, the Germans. But we all have the same way of, same traditions, and basically.
Since we're talking about Marksville, I've got a little video of you playing the Marksville two-step. So it would be good to hear that right now. Here you are. The Marksville two-step. So that's you playing the Marksville two-step. I know that one has gone down very well with lots of other bands who cover it, don't they?
Yeah, it got, when I released that song, it was one of the first songs I wrote in Cajun music. It just seemed to, I had heard the story of Marc Elige. He was a peddler who was traveling in his covered wagon through with the prairie land of Valls Parish. And sa roue de wagon a cassé, his wagon wheel broke, and so he he decided to stay there. And I had heard that story since I was a boy, and so I like to write songs, and so that was one of the very first ones I ever wrote, and it got a lot of radio play here in South Louisiana, and other bands did start playing it, and so forth.
How do you write your songs? Do you have to have an instrument with you to play and just get the feel for it, or does it come to you in your sleep, or what?
Well, I have to have an instrument. It doesn't just come to me in my sleep, but usually I'll just I'm most productive kind of with coffee in the morning, actually, and I'll pick up an accordion, and of course, if I pick up an accordion, I always play something that I'm writing or something that's new to me, as opposed to playing a song like, for instance, that Bayou Pom Pom. That's the first song I ever learned to play. So I generally wouldn't pick up the accordion and start playing Bayou Pom Pom. I've been playing that for 40 plus years. So I tend to have most of my interest in writing a new song or something that I've never played. So, I'll pick up an instrument and start messing around with it, and you hear something that kind of, a melody starts coming to you, or certain riffs, and you say, man, that sounds pretty good, and then you try to remember it.
And what's that albums? How many albums have you recorded?
I've only recorded 6 of them, which is not a lot for someone who's been playing as long as I have, but my thought on making albums is that I wanted to make albums that were okay. For instance, I could have recorded 20 or 30 albums by now, if I just wanted to re-record old songs and just put them out there again, But my thought is, when I make an album, I want it to be new songs. My last album I made, I wrote all 14 songs. And I'd say maybe 80 to 90% of what I've recorded are my songs. And I try, and you get to where you play them for so long that when I call a song on stage, I'm not thinking, my songs blend in with the old traditional songs to where I'm not thinking that there are any. The trick is, Ann, is to try to write a new song that is creatively different, but you got to stay within the boundaries of what is Cajun music.
Yeah.
If you go way out here or way out here, you're not doing Cajun music anymore. So the trick is to try to write a new song that has some different elements to it, or different twists that make it unique, but still sounds like it could have been written a long time ago.
So how did it all start, though, for you? I know that apparently your father taught you to play the guitar when you were just about 5, and then you went on to the 5-string banjo?
Oh, yeah. Santa Claus brought me a guitar at about 5 years old, and my dad, without my father, maybe I would have never played music. I don't know. He was not a professional musician, but he would always, he loved playing. He was, good on the guitar and the style that he played, which was like, I don't know if you know who Jimmy Rogers is, the singing brakeman. He'd play Carter family songs. My uncles would sing Hank Williams songs. And so I grew up, when I was young, I didn't really know anything about the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, but I knew about Jimmy Rogers and Hank Williams. And so the music I knew when I was a child was much older than most people my age would have listened to. And my father would tinker around with his guitar at the house at night. He'd get my mother to sing with him, and she could make chords on the guitar. And then we had a reel-to-reel tape recorder, and we'd record some of it. And eventually it went into cassette tapes. And when we'd get together with the family, my mother's brothers would play and sing. And so that was part of, just our life,
When did you decide to become a professional musician? I think it was, I've read that it was at a festival in Lafayette, which sort of
Well,
you decided, and it changed the course of your career, basically.
well, it changed my life. I mean, well, okay, so getting on, well, just to finish with the banjo, you want to hear about that or you want to go back? Let me go back to answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I played music from an early age, from 5 or 6 years old, somewhere in there, and by this point I'm in college. I'm getting about 20 years old or so, and well, I went with some friends to a festival. They're called the Festival des Accordions in Lafayette, and I didn't know anything about the festival. They just said, we're taking a ride. We're going to go to this event in this festival. And we walk into the park, and the theme that year was with La Jeunesse, like the young people that were starting to play the music again. Because it could have died out if people in my generation didn't really start bringing it back, because it was more like our grandparents' generation that were really playing the Cajun music, and then the people like in between were going heavily into country music and rock and roll. And so in the 70s, people in my age group and so forth in the 80s started kind of reviving the music again, which helped. Anyway, so we walk into this festival, and I see some guys about my age on the stage playing. They were called the Jambalaya Cajun Band. And, just really, man, it just hit me, and I remember the accordion player, they were showmen also. And of course, when you're about 20 years old, that really impressed me. I remember the accordion player at some point would lay on his back and he'd play the accordion like that. And he had biceps about this big. And it was like, and of course they were all speaking French. And at that time, all the people that ran the concessions would speak French. So I'd go, je veux acheter une bière, combien ça coûte, how much it costs, I want to buy beer. I'll say 2 piastres. We use the word piastres in Louisiana for $1. We don't say dollar or whatever they say in French. Piastres, I guess, a much older word.
Yeah.
And I came home from that experience thinking, well, you know what? I'm a Cajun French. I'm a musician. I want to play the music of my heritage. And I couldn't wait to get an accordion. It took me about a year before I actually got one. But, and then once I got an accordion, it becomes sort of an obsession at some point. You want to play it, you play it all the time. And I taught myself. I had nobody sit and teach me. You either push or you pull. You get different notes whether you push or pull. And you got to keep the melody in there, and you got to also make it. You can't just play the straight melody. You have to eventually add embellishments and so forth to it. So it's of course you don't start out doing that. You have to get the first bass. You around all the bases at first. So it's and you always, I've been playing 40 something years, and you're always looking to get better and improve.
Well, you can show us in a moment if you would. But
sure.
Tell me about the venues you play. But tell me about Tipitinas.
Tipitinas, well, Tipitinas is it's a very well-known nightclub. A lot of well-known people have played there through the years. It actually, the way I understand it, in 1977, a group of music lovers came together and made this place a nightclub. The building had been there for a long, long time. It's at the corner of Chapatula Street and Napoleon Avenue. And if you see there's a professor. You ever heard of Professor Longhair?
No.
Okay, he was a phenomenal musician, piano player, singer, very unique. If you hear any of his music, you know it's him right off the bat. And he lived in New Orleans. He recorded, he influenced piano players from all over the world. You've heard his influences, you've heard his music in movies. And he was living in New Orleans. He was, I think, like a security guard or something. He was not a full-time musician. And they got him to start playing more or whatever in the 70s, kind of revived his career because he had recorded like in the 40s and the 50s. And one of his songs, I don't know if you ever heard it, was, "If you go to New Orleans, you ought to go see the Mardi Gras. If you go," you ever heard that song? Or
I don't think I have, but it sounds as though I should have.
"When you get down there, somebody show you what's carnival for." He influenced, tons of piano players, even some from Great Britain, like John Cleary and what's that?
I said, what a wonderful name, Professor Longhair.
That's what he was known as. So the point I'm bringing him to Tipitina's was when they opened that club, it was a place for him to play. And he played there every week for the first about 3 years, but unfortunately he died in 1980. And I personally never saw Professor Longhair play. I wish I would have. I started playing there. The first time I played there was in 1980, 83. I don't know if you ever heard of the band Los Lobos.
Yes.
And I opened the show for Los Lobos, and we became friends after that. And when they'd come to town, we'd visit.
For our viewers, we've got a little clip of you playing at Tipitina's.
Sure.
This is, not sure what it is, but you can tell us afterwards. This is Bruce playing at Tipitina's. Let's have a look.
Thank you all so much. XTV.
You cannot stay still when I listen to your music. You just have to sort of start jigging around, even if you're sitting down. It's brilliant. You've been kind enough to let me flip through some of the photos in your family album. So can you talk us through them as we look right now? I mean, a lot of them are just lovely family photos, but It's lovely to see them. I think the place where you grew up, for a start, the farm, is that where you grew up?
That was my mother's parents' farm. My mother, her maiden name was Dupuy, and they had 60 acres there, and they grew cotton, sweet potatoes, and they've raised cattle and hogs. And up until I was about 12 years old, my grandma would go, and she worked right alongside my grandpa. They would pick cotton together, and they did things by hand. They didn't have big machinery. So
we got a lovely one of you, and I think you were about 5, so it's probably about the time that Father Christmas, Santa Claus, brought you that guitar.
Yeah.
Angelic. And then I think another one of possibly your parents at Tipitina's.
Yeah, they came. They loved coming. They always supported the music I played. You asked me about. I went to the festival and I decided I wanted to play Cajun music, but I'm still in school. So it's like a dream that you could maybe be a professional and make a living playing music. And
what did your parents think of that, though? Did they see that as very risky?
Well, they supported me. We always had a close relationship. And I got out of school. I got my degree. and I didn't jump into a job right away. I kept playing music, and I actually, there's one guy that really kind of made me turn the corner in the direction that I went. His name was Simon Spalding. He was a musician that plays like Renaissance festivals and fairs and sea shanties and all that. And we became friends. And I remember him telling me, he said, lots of people, my degree was in accounting of all things.
Oh.
And he said a lot of people do that. Not that it was something I was, I mean, music is what I love to do, you know, and he said lots and lots of people can do what you can do with your degree, but he said, you know, you're unique in what you're doing with the music. And so at that point, I went totally music in my mind, and it was like a turning point for me. And my parents generally, yeah, they supported it. I guess it's involved because I've always done everything myself. I have never had a booking agent. I've never had a manager. I've never hired roadies. Okay. If you know, I got a PA system, I'll go set it up myself. Not a large PA system. I'm good for setting up for a few hundred people. More than that, we play big events, and I don't particularly enjoy doing that, but I've always set up my own PA. People book me, they call me at my home here, and you know, I make sure everybody knows where they're going, what they're doing, and you know, and I'm trying to remember exactly what the question was. Oh, my parents. So on Sundays, they'd come pretty much every Sunday. They loved coming there, and you know, it becomes like a family because you have regular dancers. There are some people, I still play there once a month, and there are a few people that have actually been coming to see me about, you know, close to about 35, 40 years. By 30s, yeah. Some of them would come see me before I played Tipitinas. I did almost 6 years at a bar called the Maple Leaf Bar. So there's some people have been coming to dance for about 40 years to my music. And of course, my mother, you know, they became friends with all the people. My father would also, he would love to visit with the sound engineer every week. And my mother would, you know, joke around with all the dancers and have a good time. So,
well, yep. Just to give our viewers a demonstration of your dexterity, and during this video, we'll hopefully reposition you so you can actually show us your accordion. But I've got a little video here which shows your absolute lightning fingers. Well, there you are with your accordion. Is it just the one? Are you very fond of that accordion? Have you had it long?
Oh, this one here in particular? Well, you know, when you play music professionally, I have probably about 9 or so working accordions, and I don't use them all on a job. I used to bring 2 every time I play, and then lately I try to bring 3 of them. They're, you know, the accordions are in different keys, like a harmonica. If you want, I can demonstrate that.
Can you explain to us what the different hands do?
Oh, well, okay. This side plays the lead side. This side is the bass side. And then you have a button in the back here, this button here, where you have to control the flow of the air.
Oh my goodness.
And you can't, you don't want to run out of air because then it doesn't play anymore. And if you get it too stretched out, like way over here, you can't control it because you have a lot of push and pull. So in other words, for instance, well, okay, I'll show you the bass side too. So if I play without it, I'll add it.
Hey,
So
wow.
you two sides put together. Now, this instrument works like a harmonica. So, have you ever played the harmonica, Ann?
Yes, and I know what you mean. If you're blowing out, you get one sound, one tone, and breathing in, you get a different one. You know, sort of
Same
semitone.
with this. So, in other words, if I hit a button and I close the bellow, I get one sound. Now, when I open, I get another sound. And then I have these 4 stops up here.
Yeah.
Each one controls a set of reeds. Oh, I should mention this while we're talking about the accordion. These instruments are handmade in Louisiana.
Oh.
Mine were made by Junior Martin, Clarence Junior Martin in Lafayette, Louisiana. And I was just at his shop pretty recently, like a few weeks ago. And they told me, I think that Viking will bring their crews, will offer some of their people to go visit their shop where they make the accordions. And it's really very nice. It's a beautiful shop. They have a little stage where they can demonstrate and play some of the music. And you can see all the different way they make the instruments. It's, I think, definitely something people would enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
So,
it's a work of art, isn't it? It's absolutely beautiful thing to look at.
well, yes. So, some people buy them. Sometimes people that they're not musicians. Sometimes people order these and buy them, and they just put them on a mantle or something like that. Just people with excess money, I guess, that do that.
I love the crayfish, the way a crayfish expands there. It's wonderful.
The crawfish, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. L'écrevisse, we say in French, an écrevisse.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you, but what I was going to mention was that although the instrument is handmade in Louisiana, they're not mass produced in factories. The reeds that make the music, I've just thought of something I could show you, but I'd have to go get it. The reeds that make the music are made in Italy.
Wow.
They're not made in Louisiana.
Yeah.
So now each one of these, what we call stops, this now nothing's going to play. They all close. Controls a different octave. So this one here would be the high pitch reeds. Then next to those are the bass reeds. Then you have 2 right in the middle. And another one here, so you put those. And then, of course, if you put all 4 together, you get
I don't know how you remember to do it all at the same time. And you sing as well while you're doing all of that. It's incredible.
I've always thought, to me, as far as in our Cajun music tradition, It's generally not part of the tradition to sing and play at the same time. But to me, it's just because it's not normally done doesn't mean you can't do it.
Absolutely.
It's like writing a new song. You can write new songs. You don't have to just play the songs that other people have played forever. Now, I do play a few hundred old songs. And for the Viking cruise, I came up with a set or whatever of music, and they wanted me to, make songs that I thought were culturally significant to play. So I have that, and when I play longer gigs, I never use a set list. I get on stage with my band, and I just watch the audience, and I call the songs as I go. So nothing's generally pre-planned. For the cruise, it will be, a set that we're going to play for sure.
Well, I tell you what, let's show off a bit of your showmanship now, because I've got a clip which shows how you and your fellow musicians are so brilliant at your instruments. And this is where frankly, you show off here, but it's absolutely wonderful to watch. Here's a clip showing particularly your fiddle player at first and your own skill on the accordion. Let's have a look at this.
Well, thank you.
Honestly, your fellow musicians are brilliant. Tell us about your fiddle player.
Oh, her name's Gina Forsythe. And actually, Gina will be playing on basically all the cruises with me. I think now and then she might have to miss one. And, I have good sub players that play with years. Yeah, Gina's... I met Gina in 1983. She came to see me play music and was grinning from ear to ear. And we got talking in the break and told me she was a fiddle player. And then I, eventually started hiring her to play as a substitute player for quite a few years. And then she's been an official member of my band since 1994. So that's... How was that 28 years?
It's a long time.
but we've played together for longer than that, on and off, maybe pushing 40 years, And yeah, she's a fantastic player.
She's brilliant. I've got some questions here from our lovely viewers. You'll have lots more when you're on the cruise as well. But this is from Sydney, who's in Halifax, Nova Scotia. You've performed all over the world in big and small venues. Best memories, best countries and cultures you've visited? Now, I know you wanted to mention that you were in France once and met some relatives of yours.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of we can talk about. Let's see. Okay, I'll tell you the story of France. I played in France. I don't know how many times. I've actually played in Europe. I've kept an exact count of my trips to play in Europe. I've played in Europe 21 times. Ironically, I've never played in Great Britain. I've never played in England or Ireland or Scotland, whatever. But anyway, I was playing in France at this festival in Saulieu in 2005, which would have been 9 years before the film you just showed. And I remember we were the headlining act. So they said, Bruce, you start playing at midnight. I'm thinking midnight. So I'm usually, we never play at midnight back home, but that's like the honored slot, you play the last band and place was packed, and I guess we didn't finish till playing till it was close to 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I had a lot of other stuff to do. I had to make sure I got paid. I had to get my instruments picked up. I had to go see about my CDs and so forth. And while I was doing all the stuff I got to do after playing, talk with the people and all that, they had other people who weren't there. And somebody told me, they said, there's a family that would like to meet you. I said, well, I'd like to meet them too. I said, but I got to finish, seeing about everything I have to do. And they waited for me. We might not started talking till almost 4 in the morning, and they told me, they said, on est parenté avec vous. We're related to you. Yep, parenté. And they knew exactly how we were related. And what's really odd is that my last name, Daigrepont, there are no living people with the name in France today. The actual last living male that had the name died in the very early 1900s. And the name was Aigrepont, Aigrepont, and then in Louisiana, they put the D in front of it. I guess that means you were from that certain place.
Yeah.
And so there are no Daigreponts in French Canada. So the only place that the name exists was the one man that came to Louisiana. He was an officer in the French Navy in the late 1700s, and he came to Louisiana. So anybody with the name, we're a descendant of that one man. His name was Jean-Jacques. And so anyway, they told me that they had a home, and the home was named Aigrepont, of my family name, and they wanted me to go visit. And on that particular trip, I couldn't. But the next year, in 2006, we went back to France to play in Saint-Étienne, France, and a few other places. And by that point, they came and picked us up at the airport in Paris, and we drove. The house is about 3.5 hours south of Paris, about the dead center of France. And the place is, the small city it's close to is called Moulins. And they said that was the home of like the ancient kings of France before Paris. Moulins, France. And the house sits high up like on a bluff where you can see the small city from several miles away. So we go there and we spend 3 nights there among part of our tour. And it's the house my ancestors built in 1640. They had papers there in a box. Some of them, they could read and write. And they had papers, I saw some maybe from the late 1400s and with signatures on them and stuff. They let me look through. And of course, the odd part of this is that the home carried the name. See, the people that invited us there that are my cousins, their last name is Contenson. So, Hubert Contenson, and they live around Paris. and this was like their vacation home. A pretty good sized place. It had like 9 bedrooms and had a stable with horses and land and so forth. And and of course they had 4. Hubert and his wife Edith have 4 daughters. When their daughters got married, the weddings took place at this home. So the way I understood, this is what they told me. They said at some point that they've always had the house named Daigrepont, but no living person today has ever known a person that actually had the name of the home until they saw me and met me, which was really a strange feeling, you know. And they told me their daughter was messing around with the computer, and the father, Hubert, told her, he said, I think there was an Daigrepont that went to Louisiana, one of the brothers, because they had 3 brothers who were officers in the French Navy at the same time. And sure enough, she types it in, and what pops up? Me and my music.
Brilliant.
And so they said they bought my CDs, and when they heard I was playing a couple hours away, they came to see me, and they said, if he looks like he's friendly, we'll go talk. And they did. And so I got to go there. I was the first person from Louisiana that got to visit that home. Now, since I've been, has a name, Daigrepont. Since I've been there, there are some other people from Louisiana that has gone, but I was the first one, and it was just, they showed me graves of the people with the name, and it was very interesting. And my father told me a story long before this that he had heard, because we didn't, you know, you come here, but people don't know where we come from sometimes. We know we're French, because when your family speaks the language, that's what you are. Now, when people lose the connection to a language, a lot of Americans have no idea what their ethnic background is, and most people are a mixture of a lot of things. But he told me that his grandfather told him, so that would be my great-great-grandfather, that he was in a saloon in Marksville playing cards and drinking when a lawyer from New Orleans and a man from France or something, they offered him some money, and he signed away whatever inheritance he had in France. So it had to be this particular place, you know. And so, but it was great that I got to go visit and connect with people I'm related to in France. I wish they would come visit me here in Louisiana.
What that brings me on to another question from Mike and Sue in London. They say, if you're speaking to someone French from France, do you find Cajun French and French is different?
Well, sure. It's just like, you know, just like English would be very different from England or Australia to Mississippi or parts of the southern United States. The accent is the biggest difference. Very different accents. Now, Louisiana French, which oftentimes we call Cajun French, but it's really broader than that. It's Louisiana French, you could call it, is basically French from the 1700s. You know, and 80-90% of the words are the same. Our vocabulary today is not as large as the vocabulary of people living in the modern French world, because so many words have been added over time, you know, and our language is very old, from the, like I say, 1700s French. I've gone over there, and now people understand me. I guess they find I have a strange way of speaking, a strange accent. Some of the words for the animals are different. You know, like we have, I'll see if I can think of some of them, you know, what they call it. Well, like for a goat, we use the word cabri.
Cabri.
They have a different word in France, like chèvre or something like that. We say cabri, or,
yeah,
you know, trying to think, you know, but
it's bound to have evolved slightly differently on different sides of the Atlantic, isn't it, from the 1700s? But it's still enough there to be able to understand each other well. Very well.
I tell you what, Anne, I don't know if you know this, but the South Louisiana French-speaking soldiers played a vital role in World War II.
Yeah,
did you know that?
Yeah, that rings a bell now because yes, they were able to translate and they were able to fight in France speaking French.
Exactly. In
Yeah.
fact, a friend of mine named Pat Muir made a documentary about this, and he called it Mon cher camarade. And I learned this from him that apparently before the D-Day invasion, the United States government trained 600 linguists in the state of California in the French language. And if I understand right from watching his video, apparently when they got on the ground, the French people had trouble understanding these people. So the French speaking, all the World War II veterans from certain parts of South Louisiana spoke French before they spoke English. It was their first language. And so you get these people to go interpret with the citizens in France, the French underground. And I guess, probably the majority of the fighting was in France on the way to Berlin. So they played a very important role. And ironically, the language that they grew up with was before that was actually looked down on.
Yeah.
Because in America, we part of America, right? We're part of the United States. English became the predominant language, so we should learn to speak English, but the way it was done in 1921, I think it was, the state legislature in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, made all education in English, it had to be in English, but that basically said if the children would start school, they didn't speak a word of English, they spoke only French. Their parents didn't speak English. Nobody in the whole community that they knew spoke any English. And then when they'd start school, if they caught them speaking French, they would punish them and they would spank them and so forth. So, the attitude at that time was to add a new language. You had to eradicate the old language. And I guess you could say linguistically, we're one of the most ignorant countries in the world. I mean, people all over speak multiple languages. And of course, what it did, it brainwashed the people to say, well, this French, and we were always told the French that we speak is not real French. But heck, it is real French. I mean, it's just different words, different. An older way of expressing yourself. For instance, if you introduce a band, and let's say I introduce Gina to the audience. In France, they would probably call her the violoniste, like the violinist, the violoniste. That would not be natural to me. I'd say le joueur de violon, the player of the fiddle.
Yeah.
Le joueur d'accordion, joueur de violon, and so I guess in English, that would be an older way of speaking, the player of the fiddle, the player of the, but that's natural to us, or, the word pièce for $1 and.
Nowadays, the ability to speak French is seen as a cultural asset, but these things go through history. I could talk to you all day, but I think we're running out of time and you must be getting exhausted. However, I just want to say thank you so much for introducing us just as much as you could in this last hour or so to Cajun culture. But the great thing is that you will be able to meet so many more people on the Viking cruises and again introduce them to your music, I know. And as you say, there'll be lots of opportunities to do other things too for them. But can I just say thank you very, very much for joining us and showing all about the accordion and everything. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you.
Well, Anne, I sure enjoyed visiting with you, and maybe one day I'll meet you in person. Are you going to go on any of these cruises yourself?
Well, you never know. Hopefully it'll be wonderful, yeah. Or you can come to Britain and I'll host you here. But
one of these days I need to go over that way. I've been to Europe a bunch, but never been
in Britain. No, you've got to come here. Yeah, we like good music. Okay, yeah. I want to say thank you then and goodbye. And really, it's been brilliant to meet you and just go on making everybody's foot tap and entertaining as you have done so well for so long, but keep going. And thank you. We'll leave everybody with a bit more of your music in a moment.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it from me for another week. Until I'm back next week, do stay safe and well. And I do hope your holidays go brilliantly and smoothly, and your holiday planning, which is equally exciting. Now, if we've whetted your appetite for Louisiana and the Mississippi and the sounds of the South and Cajun, just click on the links below. But for now, let me leave you with Bruce and his amazing band playing what's probably my favourite track so far, the one we had a very short clip of at the very beginning, but now you can hear it all. Here's the sound of Bayou Pong Pong. Enjoy.
Swing for us.